The rhythmic hum of precision equipment filled Marcus Chen's garage workshop as he made the final adjustments to a prototype combat vest. Thin beams of afternoon sunlight filtered through the carefully positioned blinds, catching dust motes that danced around the specialized machinery. At 38, his steady hands showed the confidence of someone who'd spent over 15 years perfecting gear that kept America's finest alive in the world's deadliest places. A notification pane drew his attention to the security monitor mounted above his workbench. Patricia Walsh's pearl-white Mercedes glided past his house for the third time that day, moving at the deliberately slow pace he'd come to recognize. The HOA board president wasn't exactly subtle about her surveillance routine. Through the high-definition feed, he could clearly see her manicured hand raising her phone to snap yet another photo of his property. Maintaining community standards, she called it in her endless stream of emails to the board. Marcus had all of them archived in a folder labeled HOA Harassment, each one more creative than the last in finding fault with his immaculate property. The $1.2 million home in Oakwood Heights had seemed perfect 6 months ago. A quiet suburban community with enough space for his workshop and the privacy his contracts required. The realtor had conveniently glossed over the HOA's reputation for aggressive oversight. His phone buzzed again. Another violation notice. All garage doors must remain open during daylight hours for community safety and transparency. Violation documented at 2:47 p.m. Marcus pulled up the HOA bylaws on his tablet, though he already knew what he'd find. No such rule existed. He'd memorized every regulation before signing the closing papers, his military training making thoroughness second nature. The phantom rule was just Patricia's latest attempt to peer into his workspace. A small red light blinked on his security panel as his advanced system detected another drive-by in progress. This time, Patricia had brought company, Karen Millard from the Architectural Review Committee, both women making a show of taking notes as they crept past in Karen's SUV. Marcus switched camera feeds, checking the perimeter of his property. The 8-camera system had cost a fortune, but it was worth every penny. Each lens was positioned to provide maximum coverage while complying with all local ordinances. He even had his lawyer review the installation plans. His watch vibrated with an incoming call from a secure line. Colonel Richards, right on schedule for their weekly project review. Marcus gestured at the smart display, activating his workshop's soundproofing system. The specially designed acoustic panels, hidden behind seemingly decorative wall treatments, would ensure their conversation remained classified. "Marcus, how's the new vest coming along?" The colonel's voice filled the space. "Final adjustments on the prototype, sir. The new ceramic composite is exceeding expectations for both weight and ballistic protection. I've got the test results ready for." A sharp knock at his side door interrupted him. Through the security feed, he saw Patricia standing there, a folder clutched in one hand and her phone ready in the other. "Mr. Chen," her voice carried through the door. "As HOA president, I need to discuss these numerous violations immediately." Marcus checked his watch. 3:15 p.m. She was early today. Usually, she waited until at least 4:00 p.m. for her daily harassment attempt. "I'll have to call you back, Colonel," he said quietly, already pulling up his lawyer's number on speed dial. "It seems my HOA president needs another lesson in property rights and federal contractor regulations." The colonel's knowing chuckle crackled through the secure line. "Good luck with that, Marcus. Try not to terrify her too much with your classified paperwork this time." Marcus ended the call, straightened his shoulders, and prepared for another round of neighborhood politics. Sometimes, he mused, navigating HOA drama required more tactical thinking than his actual defense work. The Oakwood Heights Community Center buzzed with tension as residents filed in for the autumn LOA meeting. Marcus chose a seat near the back, nodding politely to James Foster, the retired judge who lived 3 doors down. The evening sun slanted through tall windows, casting long shadows across the room's blue-gray carpet as Patricia Walsh took her position at the podium. "Let's begin with standard business," Patricia announced, her voice carrying the practiced authority of someone who'd wielded HOA power for far too long. The first 40 minutes droned by with discussions about approved shutter colors and the ongoing debate about garden gnome height restrictions. Marcus noticed the thick manila folder sitting beside Patricia's designer handbag, labeled Security Concerns in bold red marker. He'd expected this. His security system had logged her taking photos of his property 17 times in the past week alone. And now, Patricia's tone shifted as she lifted the folder. We need to address a serious security concern within our community. She gestured to Karen Miller, who dimmed the lights and started a PowerPoint presentation. The first slide showed Marcus's house, photographed from multiple angles. Over the past 6 months, residents have reported suspicious activities at 847 Oakwood Drive. Patricia clicked through a series of images: delivery trucks, visiting military personnel in civilian clothes, and equipment being unloaded. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Marcus remained still, his expression neutral as he counted the numerous privacy violations in Patricia's surveillance campaign. Furthermore, Patricia continued, projecting an image of his security cameras. Mr. Chen has installed unauthorized surveillance equipment and refuses to maintain garage transparency. These cameras, she paused dramatically, are recording your children playing, your private family moments. That's not accurate. Marcus spoke for the first time, his voice carrying the quiet authority that had commanded respect in Pentagon briefings. Those cameras are registered with local law enforcement and face only my property as required by law. Patricia's eyes narrowed. Then perhaps you can explain the military-grade equipment being moved into your garage, the strange noises, the drawn blinds. Marcus stood slowly, drawing himself to his full height. I run a licensed defense contracting business, which was disclosed to the HOA before I moved in. Everything is properly zoned, registered, and approved by both local and federal authorities. We have the right to know what goes on in our community. Karen Miller interjected from her seat in the front row. What if you're building something dangerous? A ripple of nervous laughter spread through the room. Marcus noticed James Foster shaking his head in disapproval at the accusations. I design and test protective equipment for military and law enforcement personnel, Marcus explained patiently. Body armor, tactical gear, all perfectly legal, all properly licensed. The privacy measures are required by my contracts. Then you won't mind a proper inspection. Patricia smiled, but her eyes remained cold. As HOA president, I have the authority to. You don't, James Foster interrupted, standing up. I've reviewed the bylaws. The HOA has no authority to inspect a federally licensed facility. This witch hunt needs to stop. Patricia's face flushed red. This isn't about the bylaws, Judge Foster. This is about community safety. Mr. Chen could be building anything in there. Weapons. Explosives. How can we be sure? Marcus pulled out his phone and dialed a number. Colonel Richards? Yes, I think it's time for that site certification you offered. He turned to Patricia, his voice firm but professional. Since you're concerned about safety, I've arranged for my military liaison to conduct a community briefing about my work. Though I should warn you, everyone will need to sign non-disclosure agreements first. The room erupted in excited chatter. Patricia's face cycled through several expressions before settling on barely contained fury. She hadn't expected Marcus to call her bluff so publicly. This meeting isn't finished, she snapped, gathering her papers. The board will be discussing this further. As the crowd dispersed, Marcus caught a glimpse of Patricia huddled with Karen Miller near the exit, gesturing animatedly while glancing in his direction. He had a feeling this confrontation was far from over, and his security cameras would be working overtime tonight. Marcus's fingers flew across his keyboard as he shared the latest test results with his military procurement team. The impact absorption data from the new ceramic plates was impressive, 42% better than current issue armor at 2/3 the weight. On his primary monitor, Colonel Richards nodded approvingly, while other team members scribbled notes. Outstanding work, Chen, the colonel said. If these results hold up in field testing. A sharp chime from Marcus's security system cut through the conversation. His eyes snapped to the secondary monitor. where the feed from camera 3 showed something impossible. Patricia Walsh standing at his side door, sliding a key into the lock. His pulse quickened, but 15 years of working with special operations had taught him to control his reactions. "Excuse me, Colonel. We have a security breach in progress." Switching to Protocol 7. The workshop's emergency lights activated automatically, casting everything in a soft red glow. Marcus pulled up additional camera feeds while reaching for his phone. Through the high-resolution display, he watched in disbelief as Patricia pushed open his side door, a reinforced steel door with a supposedly unpickable lock. "Ma'am, you need to exit the premises immediately." Marcus spoke into the workshop's intercom system, his voice echoing through the garage. "You are trespassing in a secure facility." Patricia jumped at his voice but didn't retreat. Instead, she lifted her phone and began recording, panning it across his workshop. "As HOA president, I have the right to inspect any property within." "That's incorrect," Marcus interrupted, already dialing 911 with one hand while sending an alert to his security team with the other. "You are currently trespassing in a restricted area. Exit now." But Patricia had frozen in place, her phone dropping to her side as she took in the sight before her. Prototype tactical vests lined the walls, their ceramic plates gleaming under the emergency lights. Testing equipment hummed quietly in the corner, screens displaying ballistic data and impact trajectories. A half-assembled helmet sat on his workbench, its advanced heads-up display casting a faint blue glow. "My God," she whispered, her face pale in the red emergency lighting. "You really are building weapons." "Protective equipment," Marcus corrected, watching both her and the security feeds showing 2 police cruisers already turning onto his street. His military liaison would be mere minutes behind them. Body armor for soldiers and law enforcement. All completely legal, all properly licensed, and all now compromised by your unauthorized entry. Patricia's composure cracked. "I had reports of suspicious activities. The OOA has master keys for emergencies." "Those would be the illegal copies you made," Marcus stated flatly, holding up his phone to show her the camera feed of her entering, "which you used to breach a secure facility containing classified military projects. I suggest you remain still until law enforcement arrives." As if on cue, blue and red lights began flashing through the workshop windows. Patricia's face cycled through shock, fear, and finally settling on desperate indignation. "You can't prove I made copies. The OOA has authority to." The sound of car doors slamming cut her off. Heavy footsteps approached, accompanied by authoritative voices. Marcus watched through his cameras as both local police and federal agents converged on his property. "Actually," Marcus said quietly, "every key has a unique signature, including the official one you weren't authorized to copy, and every camera in this workshop records in 4K resolution." He gestured to the door. "I believe the officers outside will want to discuss that with you." Patricia's shoulders slumped as realization finally set in. Her HOA authority, so absolute in her mind, had just collided with something far more powerful, federal law. And Marcus had documented every second of it. Red and blue lights painted the manicured lawns of Oakwood Heights as neighbors peered through their curtains at the unprecedented scene. 2 police cruisers and an unmarked federal vehicle now blocked Marcus's driveway, while a sleek government SUV pulled up silently behind them. Agent Sarah Torres stepped out of the unmarked car, her FBI windbreaker stark against the twilight sky. She'd worked with Marcus on several projects over the years, but never expected to be visiting his workshop under these circumstances. Behind her, local officers secured the perimeter while her partner photographed the compromised door lock. Inside the garage, Patricia sat rigidly in a chair, her designer handbag clutched to her chest like armor. Her earlier bravado had evaporated under Agent Torres's methodical questioning. "Let me understand this clearly," Torres said, examining the copied key under a tactical light. "You used an unauthorized duplicate of an emergency HOA key to enter a clearly marked secure facility." "I had reasonable suspicion of illegal activities," Patricia insisted, though her voice wavered. "As HOA president, I have the responsibility too." "Ma'am, Your HOA authority ends at property lines and bylaws. Torres interrupted. This facility has federal clearance. Every piece of equipment here is classified. Your actions didn't just break local laws. You've compromised national security protocols. Marcus stood quietly by his workbench, documenting the incident while Colonel Richards watched through a secure video link. Years of handling sensitive materials had prepared him for security breaches, but he'd never expected one from his own HOA president. A commotion outside drew their attention. Karen Miller had arrived, phone in hand, already recording. "Patricia, don't say anything until our HOA lawyer gets here." Officer Chen, no relation to Marcus, intercepted her at the property line. "Ma'am, this is now a federal crime scene. Please step back." The word federal shot through the gathering crowd like electricity. Neighbors who'd been casually observing now pressed closer, smartphones raised. Some had already started live streaming. "Mr. Chen, Agent Torres called. We'll need copies of all security footage and your documentation of previous incidents." Marcus nodded, accessing his encrypted files. "I have everything archived. Her surveillance patterns, unauthorized photography, false violation claims, and today's break-in, all time-stamped and geotagged." Patricia's face drained of color as she watched Marcus pull up file after file on his monitors. Months of what she considered proper HOA oversight now displayed as systematic harassment. "This is ridiculous," she attempted one last time. "I was performing my duties as..." "As what?" James Foster's voice cut through the garage. The retired judge had arrived, looking grave. "As someone who made unauthorized copies of residents' keys, who violated federal security protocols. Patricia, do you understand the legal severity of what you've done?" Agent Torres nodded to her partner. "Mrs. Walsh will need you to come with us. We have some questions about those duplicate keys, specifically how many you made and which properties you've entered." The implications of this request visibly hit Patricia. Other residents would learn she had copies of their keys. The thought seemed to deflate her completely. As federal agents led Patricia to their vehicle, Marcus caught sight of his security feed. Neighbors had formed clusters on their perfectly maintained lawns, phones out, messages flying. He could almost see the HOA's carefully maintained power structure crumbling in real time. "Chen," Colonel Richards spoke through the still active video link, "we'll need to suspend testing until we can verify the facility's security hasn't been compromised." And Marcus, "Good documentation. You knew this was coming, didn't you?" Marcus watched Patricia's Mercedes being towed away for evidence processing. "In my line of work, sir, you learn to expect and prepare for every contingency, even HOA presidents with delusions of authority." The Oakwood Heights Community Center had never been so packed. Every seat was filled, with residents standing along the walls, all gathered for the emergency HOA meeting 48 hours after Patricia's arrest. The room crackled with tension as Marcus entered, accompanied by his lawyer, Sarah Chen, again, no relation. Vice President Thomas Rodriguez, now acting HOA president, cleared his throat at the podium. "Before we begin, I want to remind everyone that this meeting is being recorded for legal purposes." "What about our keys?" someone shouted from the back. Did she have copies of all of them? The question unleashed a flood of voices, each louder than the last. "My children's rooms face her house." Janet McKenzie stood up, trembling. "Has she been entering our homes while we're at work?" "This is ridiculous." Karen Miller cut through the chaos, her designer heels clicking as she strode to the front. "Patricia was protecting our property values. Mr. Chen is the one who turned our neighborhood into a military compound." Marcus's lawyer touched his arm, signaling him to remain seated. They'd anticipated this reaction. James Foster, the retired judge, rose slowly. "As someone with 40 years of legal experience, let me be clear. What Patricia did wasn't protection. It was criminal. She violated federal law, property rights, and basic privacy. But what about his weapons?" Karen persisted, pointing at Marcus. "Are we just supposed to ignore?" "Protective equipment," Marcus corrected calmly, speaking for the first time. I design armor that keeps soldiers and law enforcement officers alive. Everything I do is licensed, legal, and approved by multiple federal agencies. The HOA's insurance representative, Michael Patel, stepped forward, mopping his brow with a handkerchief. The liability implications of Mrs. Walsh's actions are substantial. We've confirmed unauthorized entry into at least 12 homes over the past year. A horrified gasp rippled through the room. Residents began checking their phones, texting family members to check their homes. I found these in my daughter's diary last week. A quiet voice spoke up. Susan Chen, still no relation to Marcus, held up a stack of photos. Patricia took them through our windows. She said she was documenting dress code violations at my 16-year-old's pool party. The room erupted again, but this time the anger had a clear direction. Order, please. Rodriguez banged his gavel. Our priority now is securing the community and, by doing what? Karen interrupted, letting military contractors run secret operations next to our homes. Would you prefer Patricia's secret surveillance? James Foster countered. At least Mr. Chen's security system is legal and registered. Marcus stood, and the room gradually quieted. I understand the concerns about security. That's literally my business. I'm willing to help the HOA develop proper legal security protocols that protect everyone's privacy and property rights. The insurance representative nodded eagerly, clearly seeing a way to minimize future liability. This isn't just about security, Rodriguez added. We need to completely restructure how the HOA operates. No more single-person authority. No more unofficial inspections. A young mother in the front row raised her hand. Could we see your facility, Mr. Chen? Just so we understand what you actually do. Once the federal investigation concludes, Marcus replied, I'd be happy to arrange authorized tours for residents. With proper clearance, of course. The meeting continued for hours, the community struggling to process the breach of trust. As Marcus watched, he could see the neighborhood literally dividing, those demanding accountability and change on one side, Patricia's remaining supporters on the other. His phone buzzed. Another text from Colonel Richards. Neighborhood drama worse than actual combat. Marcus typed back, at least in combat. You know who the enemy is. The Oakwood County Courthouse loomed over Marcus as he climbed the granite steps, briefcase in hand. Inside, Conference Room B had been transformed into a war room of sorts, tables covered with documents, laptops displaying security footage, and a team of lawyers representing various interested parties. Good morning, Mr. Chen, Deputy District Attorney Maria Ramirez greeted him. We've got quite the crowd today. Indeed they did. The HOA's insurance representatives sat clustered at one end, looking increasingly distressed. Federal agents occupied another corner, sorting through evidence from Patricia's home computer. 3 different lawyers represented groups of homeowners, while Patricia's defense attorney sat alone, furiously taking notes. Our forensics team recovered deleted emails. Agent Torres began, pulling up files on the main screen. Mrs. Walsh didn't just make duplicate keys. She kept detailed logs of her unauthorized entries, dates, times, photographs. The insurance representative, Michael Patel, audibly groaned. How many properties? 27 homes over 14 months, Torres replied. She documented everything, apparently believing her HOA position made it legal. Marcus's lawyer, Sarah Chen, opened her laptop. We have evidence of escalating harassment targeting my client. Multiple false violations, unauthorized surveillance, attempts to access his secure facility. My client was performing her duties, Patricia's lawyer interjected. The HOA bylaws. Don't authorize breaking and entering. James Foster cut in from the doorway. The retired judge had been asked to consult, given his expertise, or compromising federal security protocols. Patricia herself sat silently in the corner, her usually perfect appearance showing signs of strain. Her pearl necklace was slightly askew, her designer outfit wrinkled. The gravity of her situation had finally sunk in. The homeowners want answers. One of the resident lawyers spoke up. Were there cameras? Hidden microphones? We found photography equipment in Mrs. Walsh's home office. We're still cataloguing everything. Agent Torres responded. But yes, there was surveillance equipment. Professional grade. The room erupted in controlled chaos as lawyers huddled with their clients. Marcus watched as the HOA's insurance representative made yet another distressed phone call to his superiors. Mr. Chen, Maria Ramirez approached with a thick folder. Your documentation has been invaluable. Time-stamped security footage, archived emails, registered complaints. You built quite the case. Marcus nodded. In my line of work, proper documentation isn't just good practice, it's survival. A commotion at the door drew their attention. Karen Miller burst in, waving her phone. I have evidence. Patricia was protecting us from. Mrs. Miller, Agent Torres interrupted smoothly. We have your emails with Mrs. Walsh, including plans to access Mr. Chen's property. Would you like to discuss those now? Karen's face went pale. She backed out of the room without another word. The federal charges are just the beginning. Ramirez continued, reviewing her notes. Breaking and entering, unauthorized surveillance, privacy violations, harassment. And those are just the criminal charges. The civil suits from homeowners could take years. James Foster shook his head. I've seen HOAs abuse power before, but this is unprecedented. Michael Patil finally hung up his phone, looking shell-shocked. The insurance company is canceling our policy. They say the liability exposure is too great. Without insurance, the HOA can't operate. One of the resident lawyers noted. The whole power structure will have to be rebuilt from scratch. Marcus watched as Patricia was led out for another interview with federal agents. Her perfect HOA empire was crumbling around her, built on a foundation of illegal surveillance and violated trust. His phone buzzed. A text from Colonel Richards. How's civilian justice going? Slower than a military tribunal, Marcus replied, but just as thorough. The federal courthouse buzzed with tension as Judge Eleanor Martinez prepared to deliver her verdict. 6 months had passed since Patricia's break-in, and the spacious courtroom was packed with Oakwood Heights residents. Marcus sat in the front row beside his lawyer, watching Patricia at the defendant's table. Gone were her designer suits and perfect makeup. Instead, she wore a modest navy blazer, her once immaculate hair showing streaks of gray. The months of legal proceedings had taken their toll, transforming the once imperious HOA president into someone almost unrecognizable. In my 30 years on the bench, Judge Martinez began, her voice carrying through the hushed room. I've seen many cases of authority abuse, but the systematic nature of these violations is particularly disturbing. The judge lifted a document, adjusting her reading glasses. Mrs. Walsh, you didn't just violate federal security protocols. You orchestrated a years-long campaign of unauthorized surveillance, illegal entry, and harassment against your neighbors, people who trusted you to protect their interests. Patricia's shoulders slumped as the judge continued. The evidence is overwhelming. 27 homes violated, hundreds of unauthorized entries, sophisticated surveillance equipment, meticulous logs of your illegal activities. You treated your community like a personal surveillance state. From his seat, Marcus could see several of his neighbors wiping away tears. The betrayal of trust had cut deep. Furthermore, the judge continued, your decision to breach a secure federal contractor's facility demonstrated a dangerous disregard for national security. Mr. Chen's work protects our service members. Your actions could have compromised that mission. Karen Miller, sitting in the back, attempted to stand, but her new lawyer quickly pulled her back down. Her own plea deal was still pending. Therefore, this court sentences you to 18 months in federal prison, followed by 3 years of supervised release. You are permanently barred from serving on any homeowners association board or similar administrative body. Additionally, you will pay restitution to your victims, amounts to be determined in civil proceedings. The gavel's crack echoed through the courtroom. As federal marshals approached Patricia, she finally spoke. I just wanted to keep our community safe, she whispered, but in the silent courtroom, everyone heard. No, Patricia, James Foster responded from his seat. You wanted control. There's a difference. Outside the courthouse, Marcus found himself surrounded by neighbors, not with suspicion this time, but with gratitude. "Your security system caught her photographing our children," Susan Chen said, squeezing his arm. "Who knows how long this would have continued without your documentation?" Thomas Rodriguez, heading the HOA transition team, approached with a thick binder. "We've completely restructured the association. Multiple checks and balances, transparent documentation, professional security protocols, thanks to your input. And proper insurance coverage," Michael Pappel added, looking relieved. "The new policy actually costs less, with Mr. Chen's security recommendations implemented." Marcus's phone buzzed. Colonel Richards again. "Neighborhood secure yet?" Before he could reply, Janet McKenzie approached, her teenage daughter in tow. "Mr. Chen, would you consider serving on the new HOA board? We need someone who understands both security and restraint." Marcus looked around at his neighbors, not suspicious strangers anymore, but a community healing from shared trauma and rebuilding trust. Even Karen Miller, watching from her car, gave a hesitant nod. He typed back to the colonel. "Mission accomplished. Community secured. Trust restored." "Roger that," came the reply. "Now about those new vest prototypes." Marcus smiled. Time to get back to his real work, making gear to protect people, not control them. And this time, with his community's full support. 1 year after Patricia's sentencing, Marcus stood in his expanded workshop, supervising the installation of new testing equipment. The space had doubled in size, properly rezoned with the full support of the new HOA board. Through the reinforced windows, he could see children playing freely on their front lawns. No more fear of unauthorized surveillance or secret photography. His security monitors showed familiar faces. James Foster walking his golden retriever, Susan Chen teaching her daughter to drive, and even Karen Miller, who'd done a complete turnaround after her community service, now organizing a neighborhood watch program under proper oversight. "Looking good, Mr. Chen," called Officer Rodriguez, Thomas's brother, now part of the local police department's community liaison team. "The cadets are excited about next week's demonstration." Marcus nodded, checking his calendar. He'd started a monthly program showing law enforcement trainees how his protective gear was developed and tested. It had transformed the community's perception of his work from mysterious threat to valuable asset. His phone chimed with a message from Colonel Richards. New vest design exceeded all field tests. Pentagon wants to double the order. The expanded contract would mean more deliveries, more testing, more activity. But unlike a year ago, his neighbors now coordinated with his security team, helping maintain a safe perimeter while respecting privacy boundaries. The new HOA guidelines, which he'd helped develop, had become a model for other communities dealing with home-based government contractors. "Uncle Marcus," a voice called from outside. 10-year-old Emily Foster, the judge's granddaughter, waved from the sidewalk. "Dad says the new security cameras caught someone trying to steal his package yesterday." "That's right," Marcus replied, pulling up the footage on his tablet. The integrated neighborhood security system, professionally monitored and strictly regulated, had already prevented several crimes. No more unofficial surveillance. Everything was transparent, documented, and legal. The afternoon sun cast long shadows as Marcus walked to his mailbox, nodding to Janet McKenzie tending her award-winning roses. The community newsletter peeked out, its headline reading, "Oakwood Heights wins National Award for Innovation in Community Security." Inside, he found an unexpected letter from Patricia, postmarked from her minimum security facility. He'd received similar letters from other residents she'd surveilled, all part of her mandatory rehabilitation program. Opening it carefully, he read, "Mr. Chen, I finally understand what you meant about the difference between security and control. I thought I was protecting our community, but I was really just feeding my own need for power. Your work actually protects people. I see that now. I'm sorry for what I did, and I'm grateful your security system exposed the truth before I could cause more harm." A knock at his door interrupted his reading. Thomas Rodriguez stood there with the new HOA Security Committee, a diverse group of residents who made decisions collectively. "Quarterly security review," Thomas reminded him. And Sarah asked us to test dishes for the community picnic afterward. Marcus smiled, tucking away Patricia's letter. The committee meetings had evolved into social gatherings, building real community bonds instead of enforcing arbitrary power. His final security monitor showed a moving truck at Patricia's old house. A young family was moving in, military, according to their application. The father, a combat veteran, had specifically chosen Oakwood Heights after hearing about their innovative approach to security and community governance. Time for the meeting, Marcus said, gathering his reports. On his desk, the framed mission statement of the new HOA caught the evening light. Security through community, not control. Colonel Richards had been right all along. Sometimes the best defense wasn't about weapons or walls, but about building trust and understanding. As Marcus locked up his workshop, using protocols the whole community now understood and supported, he realized that his most important project hadn't been developing better body armor. It had been helping build a stronger, safer community. And that was a mission he was proud to continue.